So I'm Carter, I'm a first year international business management student, and I'm here today to ask these guys some questions about their year abroad as well as their time in placement.
Hi, I'm Fergus. I'm a fourth year student at the University of Sheffield studying international business management. I did my study abroad year at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and I did my placement year at Ralph Lauren in London.
And hello, I'm Chris. I am a fourth year international business management student at the University of Sheffield. I did my study abroad year in Florida International University in Miami, and I did my placement year working for Unilever in London.
So can you each tell me a little bit about your year abroad and how you chose it?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, so I'll go. So my year abroad, as I said, was in Miami, Florida, at Florida International University, or FIU for short. And part of the reason that I chose America in general was because I always kind of wanted to explore living there a little bit more. I was born there, but wanted to get a bit more experience in the States and learning their business culture. But I also value a very, very international and culturally diverse environment. And so that's why I chose somewhere that was kind of a melting pot and wasn't just pure American. Obviously, combined with that as well as always school rankings. And Florida International University is second in the US for international business management, so that influenced my decision as well. So it was a great experience.
Awesome. Yourself, Fergus?
Well, when we were applying to go abroad, it was around COVID, so I think my original plan was to go somewhere like Australia or New Zealand, but because of the border constrictions, that wasn't really on the table. So I looked west after Canada and the US. I think not having a language barrier, given we had so many hoops to jump through with COVID at the time, I settled on the US and I went to Milwaukee and I had a great time there.
Fantastic. So most universities offer either a year abroad or a placement. So how does combining the two work?
So actually this is one of the main reasons why I chose Sheffield was that you had the opportunity to do both a study abroad and a placement year in the same degree. I was considering some of the universities that had summer abroads or summer internships, but for me that didn't give the same experience, and so there are only a few that were able to provide both experiences to me. So how it works essentially at Sheffield is you study abroad in your second year, whereas most universities you go and study in your third year, and then your fourth year is back in Sheffield again. So second year study abroad, third year placement, fourth year back in Sheffield. It's a great experience. You've got to be very, very organised. You've got to make sure that you actually want to do it. It takes a lot of willpower and a lot of being very, very self-empowered and putting yourself out there. Whether that's making connections or whether that's making new friends or adapting to a new culture. You've got to be a fair bit of a go-getter. But if you do the experience, it's absolutely fantastic. I'd 100% recommend it.
Yeah, and I just think that being able to combine a year of both is incredibly beneficial to anyone, because I think with a shorter period you just don't get as much out of it as if you would if you maybe added 6 months and onto a 6-month placement. By doing 12 months you really dive into the work you're doing, and when you come out of it you feel so much more knowledgeable about any subject that you're studying or something you want to go into after university.
Fantastic. So of course there are two quite big things, studying abroad as well as trying to find placement, which is usually quite difficult. What support is there from Sheffield Uni in order to help you find your placement as well as your time abroad?
So the big benefit actually of studying abroad and applying to a placement at the same time, although it is difficult and you have to be organised, you get the benefits of essentially two universities to support you. At Sheffield there is also the opportunity to go and do your placement abroad, so if you did choose to do that you could go and actually work in the country you went to study abroad in. But yeah, basically you get the massive advantage of getting the entire career support from Sheffield, which is, I think we have now 3 different career services that are available to us as management school students. And then obviously the one abroad. And actually that can be really, really interesting, and I'd like to hear your input on this as well, Fergus, in the sense that you get 2 different cultures telling you how to apply for jobs as well, and that's really, really beneficial when you're applying to big multinational corporations.
On top of what Chris has already said, there's so much here at the University of Sheffield that is available to students to help them find placements. Of course, studying abroad it is a little bit more difficult, because if you want to work back in the UK, you have to position yourself in a certain way where you become a bit more available because of the time differences. There's a lot of things you've got to work around. But I think people who are applying need to know that companies understand that people are going to be in the positions they are. And if you need to kind of figure a way of working around what you're currently doing to suit an interview for a position the next year, people understand that. And there's going to be loads of different ways that you can figure out how to find the best position for you, even though you're not there in person.
So you both worked for large MNCs. Do you think that your time your time abroad gave you particular transferable skills that helped you land your placement?
Yeah, 100%. I think that studying abroad really is one of the main things that I credit to catalysing my placements. Placements are ever increasingly more competitive because of the advantage it does give you once you graduate university. But studying abroad and potentially having some experience beforehand, maybe doing a part-time job, really does set you apart from the crowd. You're not just having done a summer internship or something like that. You've gone and studied in a different culture and you've gained the skills that are associated with that, whether that is, organising or waking up at 5 a.m. for the commitment for going and doing assessment centres, or indeed whether it's the soft skills or people working with people of different cultures or different languages. There are loads of things that you gain from a study abroad that are transferable into work life that employers really are looking for. And I think that due to the small amount of people that do a study abroad and a placement year, you are very, very, let me try and find this word. You are very, very employable as a person if you do a study abroad and a placement year. So for example, I've had lots and lots of interest from different companies, and I 100% credit that to the fact that I've done a study abroad and a placement year.
I think being able to complete a year in the UK and then a year somewhere else immediately shows your adaptability. If they want someone who's going to shift away from the studying sort of setting and go into the workplace, they want someone who they know can shift into those different environments. Also, it's just that one thing immediately in an interview is going to separate you from other people who are applying, and shows that you can perform well at different sort of standards, at different expectations, because the expectations for studying here in the UK can be wildly different to somewhere in the East, in Hong Kong, in Japan, or again in the West, like America and Canada.
Nice, fantastic. Were there any skills from certain modules in your first year studying in the UK that helped you with your placement?
So from my first year at Sheffield, you do get a very, very broad basis and understanding of business. And I think that is really, really beneficial, not only for going and studying in your second year, whether that be at Sheffield or abroad, but in fact, the experiences that you get abroad are in part built upon the experience you've had at Sheffield, because you need to have that basic grounding of business to be able to do the modules that you do abroad. And there are fantastic opportunities to go and do modules that are different in different parts of the world and different study abroads. For example, I did a negotiations module and I did sales modules, which aren't available at most universities in the UK. So that basic grounding at Sheffield in your first year does set you up for a sort of a good, strong start in your second year.
Yeah, I think the modules you study in first year are a great sort of building block for what you can then pursue in your second year when you're abroad. But I think personally, after studying certain things and then doing my placement, I think subjects that involve computer skills, stuff like Excel, become very important, especially in business roles. So the module we did in first year, analysis for decision making, was a big one for us because you have to do coursework on Excel. And that gave me a lot more confidence going into my placement that I knew kind of what to do about different computer systems.
Interesting. Did either of you have any concerns when returning to the UK, either academically or sort of socially? Because of course 2 years out from Sheffield, it's quite a long time. So did you have any worries? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so this is actually a fairly big thing for me, so to say. Obviously, having done our first year as part of, as COVID with no in-person lectures, they are now fully in-person. But having done that and sort of adapted to a US system as well, and again, this would be the same for many different places you study abroad. Multiple choice exams over there are a big thing, or in-person essays are also very, very different over there than the way it would be in Sheffield. So coming back can be a bit of a challenge, especially if you have that extra year of placement and working and being, having slightly more of a structured life, so to say. So coming back to Sheffield was a little bit of a concern for mine. But that being said, actually, one of the things that doing a study abroad and a placement teaches you is massive adaptability. And so I feel like once you've done that study abroad and placement, you can fairly easily adapt back to Sheffield.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest issue that personally I came across when shifting back to Sheffield was finding a place to live.
Okay.
It was actually difficult given, obviously, we were first year in COVID, you don't have the opportunity to build maybe the connections you would expect going into university. But that's not to say there aren't, avenues for you to find people to live with. I've lucked out. I live with 4 really great people, and I've built a good friend group in this final year. And there's still people from my first year who are at Sheffield, so it's not like I'm, completely alone. But I think people do need to go into that knowing there are going to be, hindrances. But that's not to say you can't do it. I mean, we're here and we've done it. So
100%. Amazing. And the last question I've got is, would you recommend doing a placement to a IBM student coming here to Sheffield?
Absolutely. I think it sets you up for your future career growth. It really is a stepping stone. And especially with an increasingly competitive job market and more people having placements, it's becoming less of a like to have and more of a, most people have it. So yeah, 100%. I think it's a really valuable experience, and combining both is best of both worlds.
Yeah, and not a lot of people get this opportunity to be able to put both of them on their CV straight out of university. And like Chris has said, I think trying to find those things that can separate you from the pack is going to be vital if you want to find graduate roles straight out of university. You find a lot of people, once they leave university, they have to, do other things like a master's. They maybe go straight into doing a placement of some kind. But having those 2 things that, for a lot of people, only one separates them. Having both is just like an incredible thing to put on your CV and to show employers. I would highly recommend it to anyone who has it available.
Amazing. Thank you both for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you.